All right. All right, let's go ahead and open up with a word of prayer and we'll jump in. Father, thank you so much for this time to come together. Lord, this is the culmination of what we're here for. Lord, we ask that you would give us your grace and your wisdom to know how to move forward on our particular campuses. Father, we ask that you would help us to hear you and to just sense your leading, your direction. Give us your insight. Holy Spirit, give us wisdom, give us guidance, order our steps, direct our paths. And Lord, truth of the matter is when it's all said and done, we're taking steps of faith and doing what we believe you're calling us to do. And so we're going to trust in you with all of our heart. We're not going to lean on our own understanding, but we're going to acknowledge you in all of our ways, knowing that the plans of the diligent lead to plenty. And we trust, Lord God, that you are going to direct our paths. And so we commit this time together into your hands. It's in your son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is talk about the first 6 weeks planning and the vision meeting. Now, the first 6 weeks of any semester is considered to be one of the most critical times of campus ministries. As a matter of fact, there's some statistics that tell us that the progress you make in reaching and connecting with students during this first 6 weeks oftentimes sets your trajectory for the rest of the semester and even the rest of the year. Now, while we know that God is able to bring students at any point, we also realize, like Covey says, that if we're able to get the big rocks and we're one of the big rocks, we get that in first, it's a whole lot easier than having them try to fit us in after the fact. And so basically the way we're going to share with you the 6 weeks document so you can have it with you. But the basic essence of it is fourfold. One, meet weekly to pray. Two, meet as many new students as possible, get their contact information, invite them to the first meeting, and follow up within 24 to 48 hours. Three, plan, publish, and have a great first meeting. And that can or cannot be your vision meeting. We'll talk about that in a second. And then fourth, follow up with anyone who expresses interest at the vision meeting or during one of your signups within 24 to 48 hours. So first, meet to pray weekly. So when you meet to pray, make sure that you guys have a time every week to pray for the campus, praying for the students on campus, praying for impact, that God would lead the impact ministry and cause the connections to be easy and to go well and to go deep. And then praying for that first meeting, that God would draw students and that he would minister to them when they come. Okay, and so having a chance to pray for that weekly, your prayer time is the engine for the ministry. It's the engine for the movement. And so meeting weekly to do that is very critical. Second, meet as many new students as possible. Whatever organizations or whatever opportunity exists for you to meet new students, like an organizational fair, whether it's virtual or in person, with this COVID climate, but make sure you avail yourselves of those opportunities. Meet as many new students as possible and get their contact information. With a social media contact, phone number, whatever the case may be. They may not even make it. You want to invite them to the first meeting, but if they don't make it, if you have their contact info, you can still connect with them. And once you get their contact information, make sure you follow up within 24 to 48 hours just to connect with them. Even if you're just saying, hi, it was so glad to meet you, want to invite you again to come out, or is there anything we can be praying for? Just that follow-up connection makes a difference. Third, plan, publish, and have a great first meeting. That's pretty much self-explanatory. Plan it. Make sure it's a wonderful time for students to connect, that they feel the relational feel, they feel cared for, they have fun. It's super energetic that students, when they come to that first meeting, they are really impacted by what's going on. Now, some will have that first meeting as their vision casting meeting. Some will make vision casting their second meeting. I've seen it work both ways, so I don't necessarily have a preference. But whenever you do have that vision casting meeting, I would suggest that you have 5 elements that are critical. One, again, that there's a time of welcoming people. 2, there's a time of icebreaker or having fun during the meeting, some type of fun activity. 3, you tell them why impact. 4, you tell them about impact, the what. So that's the mission, vision, the 3 Ps, 10 core values. And then 5, have a chance to invite them to be a part, to officially sign up and connect. You can even use it as a sign up for small groups if you want to, but if not, just to officially be welcomed in the group chat, et cetera, et cetera. So again, whether you have that vision meeting the first meeting or you have it the second meeting, just make sure you have it so that you can cast vision for what impact is about, so just so they can get it. You want to publish it. You want to publish it well. Again, use your hashtags for your classifications. Hashtag the Black orgs there on campus. Have your friends repost the flyer that you're putting out there. Just try to get the word out there as much as possible on social media as well as in person. And then fourth, follow up within 24 to 48 hours. So anybody who says that they are interested, whether it's through, you meet them on campus and you get their contact information, invite them to the first meeting, or if it's at the first meeting where they're signed up to be a part, make sure after you get that get their initial contact information, that you give them a follow-up call or text within 24 to 48 hours. Because again, that contact, when you have the first contact, oftentimes the enemy can begin to fight against them. They can begin to have questions or doubt as to whether or not they even want to be involved. And so just that contact within the first 24 to 48 hours really makes a difference to let them know, hey, we're really serious about you and God is really serious about you and we want to see you grow. Okay? So this is chapter planning. And so we actually want you to have some time to plan what your chapter is going to do for this semester. So where we're going to begin, we're going to give you just some general tips. Several of us are going to share. We're going to have one of our student leaders that's a part of the Active Impact chapter. She's going to share just in terms of what they have been doing on their campus. And then Anna and I will also share just what we have seen happen and what has worked well with campuses that are launching. Probably some lessons learned so that you don't repeat the same mistakes. And then after that, we're going to go over a grid. I mentioned this yesterday. That's going to kind of outline things to keep in mind as you're going toward launching. And you'll actually be able to take that document with you. It's in the group chat. And then after that, we're going to give you some time to literally go with your teams. We're going to break you out by campuses. And for those of you who are just single individuals, let me just say that differently, who are just onesies from a campus, because many of y'all are single, we're going to put you together in small groups so y'all can kind of bounce ideas off one another. However, if you're here by yourself and you'd actually like to walk through it with one of us as your coach, then you can opt out of your breakout room and stay here in the main session, and then we'll kind of walk you guys through that planning. So you'll have that option to go either way. Okay? Any questions before we start? No? Good? All right. Cool. All right, this time I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin. She's here from Texas Tech. She's been with them 3 years or 4 years. How long have you been with Tech?
I've been with Tech for 3 years.
Okay, great. And she's wearing that fantastic team shirt that everyone loves who knows anything about football. And so I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin to give us some tips.
Okay, so as far as chapter planning, we kind of use the model from ILI a few years back. I think it was 2 years ago, 18-19, which is like you plan on a 6-week, schedule. So for that first 6 weeks, we really target trying to get incoming freshmen in. And not just incoming freshmen, all new students who maybe haven't heard about Impact before, or maybe who are trying to get involved with certain things. So we really target that through social media. We have a lot of intentional game nights that we do. So we do that for the first 6 weeks. We do it every single week for the first 6 weeks, which gets tiring, but it's worth it because when we go to different events, like welcome week events, we can say, hey, we're having a game night this Friday, if you would like to come, which might attract students who don't usually come to meetings or who don't usually come to church settings. We can get them involved in some healthy fun. And we also plan on our meetings. So for the first 6 weeks, it's very basic, kind of freshman-based, targeted for the first 6 weeks as far as content-wise in Impact. And then those 6 weeks, as we get a feel for the people in our chapter, we kind of see where they're at, then we can start to develop a goal. So we have a goal for that 6 weeks, like, okay, this 6 weeks, we want to focus on biblical IQ. This 6 weeks, we want to focus on a certain particular thing. Even though we are hitting all of the core values, if we realize that they're lacking in one area, we focus on that. And so we plan by 6 weeks and see how we've improved and evaluate. Also with outreach, each 6 weeks, we try to make sure that we have at least 2 volunteer events and events that maybe, it can get easy for regular Impact people to just show up to events and not want to invite people in. So we try to have events where we can get people to actually go out and evangelize to bring more people in. What else? Outreach, and I forgot what the last thing was. What was the last thing?
Lessons learned, perhaps things that you've seen worked well, and maybe things that have not worked well.
Okay. Things that have worked well. The game nights have proven to work very, very well for us. Just because I think that we're very competitive. So everybody wants to be a part of the competition. Everybody wants to play. But another thing, if you guys are interested in game nights, to keep in mind that we've learned is that to focus on group games in the beginning, because it's very, like last year we made the mistake of doing stuff like spades, Uno, very individualized games that we might have been used to just playing with each other who have already been in Impact. And like other people who are freshmen or who are new to Impact kind of felt isolated. And then when we expressed that, like, okay, what have we been doing good or what should we do better? That was a big concern. Like we feel like we're isolated just because we're not let in. So keep in mind, maybe those first 6 weeks, you can play group games. You can play games that involve everybody. And as you start to build relationships with people, then you can start incorporating games that may be a little bit more individualized, but just keep in mind the whole group setting. What other things that have worked? Also one thing that's worked just at our meetings is that we don't just have like a lecturer kind of. That's one thing that I think is unique about like our chapter and as opposed to other Black organizations, is that we actually get to speak at our meetings, and we have small groups. So say we have about 20 people who come, it's about 4 small groups of 5. And as we go over a passage, we have like leaders who are group leaders, and they kind of direct conversation, get everybody to talk, find out more about them. Just trying to make everybody feel included and feel like they have a voice, because it can be very intimidating as an incoming freshman to hear all of these big voices and feel like, oh, I don't know anything, or oh, I don't want to say anything. So that's a really great way for them to be able to speak out and express their ideas. So, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, cool. That's some great things. Thanks so much for sharing, Caitlin. Anybody have any questions? Caitlin's going to be with us, but she's actually going to be a part of her planning, so she's going to leave us. So we just want to create some space. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Caitlin as a student leader working on an active chapter?
I had a question. So do you do this? Is this like every 6 weeks you like reevaluate these things, or is it like the first 6 weeks? Like how does it work like in that way?
So okay, I'm kind of a neat freak. I love everything to be organized. It's kind of, some people say it's like excessive, but I have Google Drive folders of literally every single thing. So whether it be meetings, whether it be meeting PowerPoints, graphics, photos, they're all in the same folder, easy for people who are of the executive board to come and access. So we have different sheets that we use. And so like for the first 6 weeks when we evaluate things, so we'll have the first 6 weeks, right? And then we're coming up on week 5, getting ready to be week 6. By then, we've probably built some relationships with some people who are coming in. So then I'll say, hey, let's meet up. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. And it could just be like a normal conversation, but then I'll ask like, hey, what are some things that you notice that we're doing good? What are some things that you notice that we're doing bad? And also you have to, people are kind of, especially if they're freshmen, they're kind of nervous to say like what you're doing bad. So you have to really watch your verbiage and your facial expressions and things like be very open, because people won't want to share if they feel like you're going to reject them kind of thing. So just say, hey, you can be honest. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I just want it to be better for you. So yeah, we do that every 6 weeks. And so, because we do events, we do new events every 6 weeks as well. So I'll even follow up after that event happens and say, hey, what did you think about this? Or hey, how do you feel about this? It doesn't have to be like clockwork, but like as you sporadically meet with students, you can say, oh, what did you think about this event that we did? Or, oh, what did you, and they'll give their input as they get more comfortable with you. So.
Okay. So like reevaluating every 6 weeks to like know what to change. You're not doing like the whole semester of like the same thing and then people don't like it or something like that. And you don't know.
Yes. Because that's happened before when we used to plan. Like, I think one semester we did plan for the whole semester. And that was just like, oh my gosh. Because when we got to the end and we were like, okay, how are evaluations? Everybody was slaughtering, like not in a bad way, but just like coming at us, you know, like we didn't like this, we didn't like that. I was like, okay, we need to make this a more reoccurring thing that is normal. So we can constantly be evolving. So yeah.
That's great, Caitlin. That's great. Getting that feedback on a constant basis is great. And one of the things that she mentioned was particularly the first 6 weeks, and it depends on what stage of development you guys are as a chapter. We'll talk more about that in a second. But if you already have a leadership team and you're actually ready to start launching on campus, using that first 6 weeks, not exclusively, but to really focus on reaching freshmen really is significant. Again, it's not exclusive, but it's particular. Because if you can get in their schedule, that first 6 weeks, people are setting their routines. So if you get in their routine in that first 6 weeks, typically it's a lot easier to keep them. After that first 6 weeks is over, statistically, historically, it tells us if you're not in their schedule by that first 6 weeks, you have a hard time getting them after that first 6 weeks is up. And so that's why, like Caitlin said, we're really hitting hard and heavy with that game night every week, the first 6 weeks. It may not be a game out on your campus, but something that's really bringing people together for that first 6 weeks. Then after that, you can kind of slide it back a little bit and you're focusing more on building community. But yeah, that's really good. So thanks a lot, Caitlin. If there are no other questions for her, we're gonna go ahead and let her get into her track. Thank you so much. Y'all give her the hand clap emoji or whatever you got. I appreciate it. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank y'all. Bye.
All right, cool. All right, Anna, we'll turn it over to you.
All right. Yeah, so I think a lot of things that Caitlin said are really good things. Things that I ask our students to think about when chapter planning are usually two things, two primary things, I guess, that we prioritize. One is, are the plans that we are making attractive to unbelievers? So are the things that we're planning, the things that we're going to do, are they attractive to unbelievers? So thinking about planning from that aspect too, just because I really push like having a movement that has unbelievers in it, because that's what we want to see. We want to see unbelievers transformed. And so asking them, like, are the plans that you have attractive to unbelievers? The next thing is because we are contextualized ministry to Black students, what do Black students need? And thinking when we're planning, like, what is it that Black students need on campus? Like, what is it that your students need? I know I wasn't here yesterday when Curtis talked about decoding, but I'm sure like that was part of it. Like, what is it that Black students need? And so when I think about even things that have happened over the summer, how do you integrate those things moving back into the fall? Because students might not have the opportunity to really talk through or engage in conversations about race or injustice. Like they might not have those spaces to do that now during the summer. So what does it look like to continue to talk about these things in the fall and plan for these things in the fall? So those are usually two questions that I ask our students when it comes to planning. I think the other thing that I agree with Caitlin on is just not planning too far ahead. I think specifically in like this time, because we're dealing with Corona and because some things might be hybrid, I think it's best to not plan too far ahead. And so what we're actually going to be doing is only planning several weeks. And every several weeks, then begin more planning, just because right now we're going to be hybrid. So things will be fine, but the president of our university could be like, all right, nope, we're shutting everything down. We're going completely online. There's going to be no one on campus. So you don't want to plan too much stuff far ahead and then miss opportunities or waste money or resources that you have that you're going to use to orchestrate events or things of that nature. So planning, yeah, really incrementally and things of that nature. The other thing that I also think, and I think that this was talked about in the beginning, was I think in order to expand your outreach, I think it's good for student leaders I tell student leaders, I think it's great that you're involved in something more than impact. Just because, like, I don't want you just involved in impact. I don't. Like, I tell student leaders, like, get involved in something else. I don't care if it's we got a catch-up club at ISU. Get involved in the catch-up club. Like, get involved in something other than impact, because that is how you reach people. If you want to expand your outreach, then as student leaders, you have to expand your reach. And that means you have to go out besides, like, your just normal circle. And I tell students all the time, like, use that as an opportunity to engage with other people, use that as an opportunity to engage with non-believers, use that as an opportunity to engage with people that used to come to Impact that don't come anymore. Check in with them, see, like, what's going on. Because a lot of times we'll have that too. Like, I know we are really super heavy freshmen, which we are too, specifically our first several weeks. But also I tell them too, like, engage with people that were consistent in coming and then kind of stopped coming. Like, reach out to them, engage, see how things are going, and see if you can find an avenue or way to ask, like, why they stopped coming and what does it look like for them to, like, reintegrate themselves into our space. Another thing that we do in the beginning is we have a lot of partnerships. So we do a lot of partnering with other Black organizations on campus. And so we'll partner with BSU, or we had student leaders that were BSU stands for Black Student Union. We'll also partner with, we had some student leaders that are part of fraternities and sororities. So we'll partner with their organizations as well. And so not being afraid to make partnerships too, as it relates to chapter planning, and engaging with people. And then the last thing I might say is, what is your university already doing? I think a lot of times, like, what we found that didn't work was we would have an event and it would be the same day as another event that the university is doing that has thousands of students that are coming, thousands of, like, new students. So my thing is, cancel our event. Let's just go to that event as a group. And go to that event as a group and engage with students, where you're going to be able to reach so many more students. And so also making sure that you are aware of what's on your school's calendar, and that, like, if there is a bigger event, that a lot of times when we think about reaching out to freshmen are going to go to events where stuff is FREE, the free. If they're giving away free cups, free food, you got free hamper bags, like, all of these things. If something is free, oh, they coming for the free. I don't care if it's free straws, they coming for whatever is free. And so we should go to those events too. Like, even if you got enough of the free, go to those events, because that's where freshmen are going to be, where things are free, and where the university is putting on events where it's like freshman oriented. So I know one of the things, so like right now we're going to be hybrid at ISU. So they have students that will be moving in, freshmen that will be moving in, I think, over a course of a few days. And so things that we've done in the past are we volunteered for move-in. So that means that we volunteered to help freshmen move into their dorms. And that's another way that our students made a lot of really amazing connections too, and, like, told them about events that we were having and engaging with them about events. And I think the next thing, this is really my last thing. The last thing that I would say is, don't wait to have events. So don't think like, because I know we've done this before too, like, maybe they need the first week to kind of acclimate themselves. Don't wait. I say get them that first week and get them even the weeks prior. So what we even had was we used to have events before school even started and we knew freshmen were on campus. Planning that way before school, before the semester starts to roll out or whatever, plan events, plan ways, like we would hand out flyers, we would do surveys before school even started so that they know, because we meet on Mondays at ISU for Impact. And so the very first day of school was our very first meeting. And I think this last year when we did it, we had over 300 people that showed up to our very first meeting. because we were so intent on connecting, and I think over half of them were freshmen, but we were so intent on connecting with them before school even started. And so I think that's something that you should do too. Don't wait. Do not wait. Just go ahead and get after them as soon as they get on campus, because really those days before school, they don't have anything to do. And they're looking for things to do. They're looking for ways to get involved, or they're looking for ways to get connected with other students. So those are just some of my thoughts.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Anna. Any questions for Anna about anything she shared?
I have a question. So I am Keisha from Southern Mississippi. So we are in the process of launching, of course, because I'm in this group. And so we are having a hard time like actually doing events, because you kind of need to be a organization on the campus to even get a room or something like that. So like, what is your like advice? Sometimes we like to use like partner with crew, or like kind of just use crew to kind of get a room or something. But like, what is your advice to like start events and to start reaching out to freshmen if we're not technically an org on campus yet?
Yeah, really great question. So I actually dealt with this at Western Illinois when we were there. So we actually did end up allowing for or asking crew to help us reserve rooms, but they were just impact spaces. Because I think that's also important too, that there are spaces just for Black students. I don't think there's anything wrong with partnering with crew and doing activities, but I do think that there's a need for impact. There's a need for these Black Christian spaces. And so crew, they would reserve rooms for us, and then we'd be able to meet and have Bible studies and things of that nature. But while that was happening, we were working on becoming an RSO. So it's kind of like you're doing those two things at the same time. So you're asking someone to like help reserve rooms, but then at the same time, you're still working on like becoming an RSO, which for us, I don't know, I'm sure it's different for every campus, but you probably have to get a staff that will kind of co-sign you, or like be your staff
advisor.
Yeah, thank you. Be your advisor. And so start working on that now, asking and looking for and trying to partner with, okay, who's a staff or faculty on campus that is a believer, that will sign papers for us and engage with us. And I think like from there, like because you do want to like be your own RSO, so that like things like the student organization fairs, you can sign up for those yourself and you can be present there on your own rather than having to be under crew. Because I do think it's important to just have that, like your space for impact and for impact students. But I would say if you have a good partnership locally on your with your local crew campus, asking them to reserve rooms, all the while you getting what you need to get so that you can become a student organization.
Great. Any other questions for Anna? No? All right. I'll share briefly. I think they've kind of hit everything, so there's not a whole lot more to add to that. But just two things I would put out there is, one, I would say, particularly for those of you who are launching. Now, I think we have people at different stages, and so we're going to talk about this in a second, because I think some, I can't see a lot of faces. I guess people still doing lunch. But how many of you guys you can give me your emoji if you need to, or if you're on here. How many of you guys you're just a coach and you don't have any student leaders yet? You're just a coach that wants to bring impact to your campus. If that's you, give me an emoji or wait. Okay, that's 1, 2. Okay, so just those 2. All right. How many of you guys, you're a coach and you have at least 3 student leaders already? 1, 2, 3. Okay, Becca, you kind of in between. I'm 4 or 5. Okay. All right. And then how many of you guys are already kind of launched? You're in the process of launching, but you got a coach and you have like more than 4 or 5 students involved. And so you're at the next stage. You're there too, Christine. I get you. You're more that last one. All right, cool. All right, so 3. Okay, well, now some of y'all in both groups. Okay, all right, that kind of gives me a sense. Okay, so what I'm going to say, I'm going to kind of target those who are in the first 2 groups. So you don't have the 5 people and you, or you're just a coach. It's just you. First thing I would say to you is build your foundation well. One of the biggest, well, we've probably launched about 7 or 8 chapters up to this point, and one of the things that we have seen is when the building goes as high as the foundation is deep, right? And so if you don't lay the foundation well, when we don't lay it well, the building only goes so high, or you have to pull up the foundation and relay it because it's not building well. So I would suggest you build the foundation well, particularly if you're just a key leader. You spend time, as we talked about yesterday, learning impact and learning your campus. So decoding it, knowing it well, that is significant. And that'll put you light years ahead of the game. When you know, I'm not going to repeat all the stuff we talked about, but when you know the orgs, when you know the process of becoming an org, when you know what the issues are on that campus, when you know what the needs are, it just puts you so much further ahead of the game. So know your campus and then know impact. If you're just learning impact, it's going to be significant to understand who we are, how we operate, because yes, we are a campus ministry like other campus ministries, but there are some very unique aspects. We talked about a little bit about that yesterday. You need to know us and know what God has called us to do so that then you can walk in that well. Second, I would say recruit. Again, this is just if you're just a key leader or you're just a coach. Recruit people. That first semester, focus on just recruiting to build at least that small group. I would say ideally 5 to 7 people who have bought into the idea, who are buying into the vision that God has given for impact. I think that's significant. And then last, I would say, is build community. Even though you only may be 5 or 7 people as the key leader, invest, build community. Because again, what happens in the leadership team, what happens in the head, will happen in the body. So if it's laid in the foundation, it's laid well so that your leaders understand discipleship. You're out there with them. Y'all have some time out there on campus sharing your faith in a way that is culturally relevant. If you all are learning about ethnic identity as a group, if you all are spending time just hanging out and having fun, and I mean real fun, not, excuse me, I'm gonna use coach speak, not coach fun, but student fun, doing stuff the students actually love to do, right? If you do that as a leadership team and the students feel that, they reproduce that in a group. And so again, that's talking about laying the foundation well. But if you're at the stage where you already have a leader team, again, the same ideas, learn that they know you all as a group know impact well, you decode your campus well, and that you're becoming a registered org, and that's significant if you already have that team. But also building community that's doing everything, but they really are building real relationship with one another. Because when new students come, there's just a vibe that's in the room. When the leadership team is together and flowing, there's a vibe in the room that people say, hey, this is a welcoming space. And you want to have a leadership team that's committed and gets it. That they get the intent. They may not necessarily be, they may not be super mature or, pastors or elders, whatever, but they understand discipleship. They understand evangelism. They understand ethnic identity. They understand how to have fun as believers. Because as a coach, if you're the only one that gets it, but the team doesn't, and I've seen this happen on a couple of campuses, once you start launching, students will love that space and they'll come. But if you don't have a strong leadership team, then what happens is as the group grows, the ability to really transfer that DNA and really build community where Christ is at the center and we're really growing in our faith, it becomes so much harder. And then the work falls back on you as coach or maybe 1 or 2 leaders. And you have I remember one campus, they had like 30 or 40 students, but they had 2 student leaders. And those 2 student leaders by October, November, they were like, I'm out. I can't do all this. It's too much, because they were trying to keep up with the demand instead of building a good foundation. So that's just something I want to put out there for you to consider. Take the time, because we're not trying to grow quick in terms of quantity. We're trying to grow deep in terms of quality. And when you have student leader teams that get it, that understand impact, that know how to follow Jesus and help others do the same, your movement will take on that same culture. So that's what I would put out there. And then the last thing is pace, and I'll ask questions. As you're launching, again, for those first 2 groups, make sure you are cognizant of your pace. Don't try to do more than what you all can actually support on an ongoing basis. Sometimes, again, some movements, they try to do so much so quick, but they don't have the capacity for it. And so we got small groups, we got outreach, we got mission services, we got hangouts. And again, the student leaders get burnt out because it's too much. Do it at a pace that works for you all as a movement. We're trusting the Lord for the work. He will build. He will give the increase. We do that at a pace that realistically we know we can walk with the Lord as we're doing it. All right? So those are the two things I'll put out there. Build the foundation well, and then make sure you pace it well. Any questions for me before we go to the grid? Or comments? Anna or Tracy or anyone else? Any other comments?
Yeah, I was actually going to say too, know who you're, I think it's helpful. I think Curtis, you had said like no impact. I also think it's good to like know the staff on impact. Like, so know who your regional director is. Now, I can't tell you who they are off the top of my head, unfortunately. But I think it's good to know who's the regional director, like for your region, just in case like something might come up and it might not be a question that you can answer, but more than likely your regional director can answer. If not, they can find the answer for you. And so I do think that that's helpful to like know who your regional director is, or know like what other what other impact staff or impact chapters are even in your state as well. I think that's helpful in terms of like making connections and understanding like who you can go to and what avenues and ways that you can engage and get mentorship or get help as it relates to issues that may arise within your chapters, or just things that you might need insight on, even if there aren't any issues. So I would definitely say, yeah, know who your regional directors are.
That's real good, Anna. Any questions on that one?
I also have another question.
Okay, go for it.
I have two questions. So the first question, I think on our campus we may have between 2 and 3. So I would say leaning more to 2 solid leaders versus the 3. And so during this maybe semester or this school year, do you think that it's important to kind of just build that relationship, like you said, build a foundation before trying to push into launching so soon? And then the second question is, what can we do or what should we do while we build a relationship and a foundation in the leadership, while still trying to do the process of launching, if that makes sense? Like, do we still do evangelism? Do we still have prayer time? Or if that makes sense?
Cool. I'll put that out there, and let me have some other people respond, and then I'll jump in.
I guess I could share a little bit about my experience when I was a student. And one of the things I kind of wanted to piggyback off what you originally said, Curtis, was that we grew slow at first, which was a very big help for us. You know, we wanted to grow big and get to huge numbers like, you know, everybody kind of does, but it was healthy that we grew slow. We didn't really gain numbers till about halfway through our sophomore year. And the benefit for us was that as things really did get picked up and get heavy, we had a good solid foundation of leaders in place. So when 1 or 2 people needed a break, they could step back from the ministry for, you know, a few weeks, and we had it covered because there was a solid group of leaders. And so we could all take, if we needed that type of break or things of that nature, we were all sharing the load. So that growing slow and just focusing on developing leaders, developing that foundation, that core group of foundational people was a big help for us for when we did begin to grow larger in numbers. And I would say, I guess to try to specifically speak to the question that just came was, I think one thing for us was, one, focusing on prayer, you know, just even as like a core group of leaders, whoever that core, if it's 5 or if it's 2 people, you know, focusing on that prayer time, and that gave us a stronger foundation too as well. And I mean, I guess kind of building around the other areas, you know, as you can, as your time permits, because it's a little difficult for me to kind of answer the question now because I know a lot of people are going to be virtual, and We definitely weren't virtual back in my day. No. But I just will say, I mean, I think for us, it was the focus on the core group, prayer, building, and discipleship, because we had a core group who was just learning impact. You know, it started my freshman year, so we had to really still kind of learn impact ourselves, and then, you know, and developing outreaches. So that's a little bit I have.
Yeah, thanks, Ajane. I'll just jump in real quick. So, Keisha, I think I heard you. I heard two questions. I think I only caught one, and is that the one with the two students? What all should you do? This is just me. I would definitely encourage you guys to focus on building the group. And so, even with the two of them, if each one is inviting one to be a part of like a small group Bible study, I would not suggest you try to worry about launching in the sense that you're trying to reach the whole campus yet. But yet, so you have this group that's being built. But even in that, you can still model with them, like going out sharing your faith. Y'all can even table together. Not that you're trying to reach the whole campus, but you're saying, okay, Lord, who are the others that you would have to be a part of this group, a part of that building team? Because I would suggest you want to have at least 5 people when you're launching. Just because reality that happens with grades, with school, and things can happen, and you don't want. I would not recommend you're trying to run a movement with just 2 people. I just think the demands that would come up is just not practical. But also use this semester to really make sure they're strong in disciples so that they're able to disciple others. That's key, because again, that reproducing culture is what you want to have as a part of the culture or the DNA of your chapter. So I think you do definitely meet for the prayer times, have times to share faith in a recognition of their capacity, what they can do. So do it on a smaller scale, but definitely do that so that it becomes part of their DNA, that they know, hey, this is what we do as Impact. But I think also spending time going over the Bible studies and the scriptures for each of the core values, so that they understand who Jesus is, they understand who Impact is, and that it becomes a part of their life, not just something that they do as we're preparing to launch. That would be my suggestion for you. Anna, you have anything you want to add?
No, yeah, I think I would agree with everything that's been shared and been said, working inside out.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we get to the grid?
Oh, Anna, you mentioned like knowing who your regional director is, or like your regional like coordinator. Do you know where we would find that like info specifically?
I'm going to throw that question to Brother Curtis.
Yeah, we're gonna try to look. That's why I was letting somebody else talk, because I was trying to find it. So we're gonna try to put that in a group chat before we leave, so everybody can know their regions. But I will say, at worst case scenario, we'll give you a main contact number. So if you can't find somebody or you get connected with somebody else, you'll always have somebody to call. But we'll put those coaches in a group chat. Great question. Thanks, Anna. Any other questions or comments? All right. We're going to go. Okay, this is the chapter leader's guide, and this is particularly focused on launching chapters. This is also in your group chat so that you can see it. Here's what we're suggesting that you focus on when you are in the process of launching. Now,
they also got an email to them, Curtis, so they can check their emails.
Okay, great. So if you can't get it out the chat, you can also get in your emails. So here's what we're suggesting that you guys focus, and you'll notice, you'll see here is divided into the 3 Ps. You'll see the 10 core values incorporated in each of these sections: parachurch, paraschool, and paracommunity. Now, you all have a copy of this, and so even as you're planning this semester, I think if you're in this launching phase, these are items that you want to see. These are actions that you want to incorporate in what you're doing as a launching chapter. Now, you may not be able to do all of them initially, especially if it's just you as the key leader, as a coach, and you don't have any students yet. But these are things that you want to keep in mind. A couple of things that I'm going to highlight. I'm going to start with the parachurch. Again, of course, you want to make sure that everyone has been introduced to the Impact mission, vision, and values, as well as the 3 Ps. You want to make sure. That's key. People have to know who we are and how we do what we do. But also in terms of student leaders, two things I want to highlight. You want to have student leaders, first, that are surrendered to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. They understand that. They understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And again, not that they're necessarily super, they got to be super mature, that they're ready to go and staff with the church. But you do want to make sure that they understand what it means to walk with the Lord on a regular basis. Because if not, and then we put them in leadership, we're just setting them up. And that's not healthy. But if you have students who are ready and willing, but they just need to grow, then that's a great time to spend the semester investing in them, pouring into them so that they can continue to grow and mature and prepare for the work. The second part is this vision casting, being willing to engage in discipleship, prayer, evangelism, and ethnic identity. So I'm going to distinguish this. So the first one, being surrendered to the Lordship of Jesus Christ, means they are all in with Jesus. The second one, vision casting, means they understand and they're all in with how God has called Impact to go about ministry. That is significant. I'll use this as an example, because if you have a student that loves Jesus and is following him, but doesn't really have a desire to be engaged with the Black community on their campus, that's not who you want to put in leadership with Impact, because that's going to create a disconnect. It's going to create problems and dissonance with the movement, because again, we're called to engage these issues of ethnic identity and what God says about that, and helping Black students understand that they're beautiful and what God intended. And so if you have student leaders who aren't ready to have that conversation, or who don't desire to lean into those conversations, then that's not the kind of person you want to put in leadership with Impact. Let me pause right there because I can't see. Questions or comments regarding that? No, y'all good? Okay. All right, we'll keep rolling. Coach, during this phase, you want to identify a coach. Whoever the coach is, the coach can be a crew staff, the coach can be a volunteer, an Impact volunteer, the coach can be a faculty member, a staff member, but you want to get a coach because you want to have a team and you want to have a coach. The coach's job is not to direct the Impact movement. We are a student-led movement. The coach's job is to disciple the student leaders, to develop or disciple the student team, develop them as leaders, and then provide direction for the chapter. But it's the students that actually lead the chapters. So you got to have a coach that understands that they don't try to make this their little place, that they understand their job is there is to serve. But with that, you also want to make sure, I just want to highlight, you have a coach that's committed to the values of Impact. Because again, that could create dissonance, and we're just trying to tell you lessons we've learned if you don't have a coach that's committed to the values and the work that God has called Impact to do. So again, having students and having coaches that get it, that walk with the Lord and want to walk out what God has given Impact to do. Any questions about any of those? Good. Okay, we'll keep rolling. Discipleship and or small group training, that should be happening. Discipleship, happens in small group, but sometimes if you only have one or two people, then that's what's happening. You're doing it with one or two students, which is more discipleship, literally just like one-on-one discipleship. But again, that whole thing is you're doing it in such a way so that it can be reproduced. We're doing it for them so that they can do it for others. That's the whole goal. Another thing, I'll hit briefly on the Paris School. Again, getting registered as a campus org. That is so significant that you're understanding, you're knowing what is the process for your campus. That is so significant, important to do during this process. And then the decoding process. Here we're talking about school, but just in general, again, decoding your campus so you know who it is you're trying to reach and how the Lord might be leading. Then I think the last one was on the para community. Building that community is so significant to do during this phase. Because if we have outreach and we have evangelism and we're doing academics, but we're not building community, you won't have students that really value the context, and so then they won't bring others. But when you're really building a healthy community where students are feeling loved, they're growing, and they're able to invest, they're going to want to bring others to that environment. It'll just happen. So again, building that quality going deep will also help the quantity down the line. So again, that's this grid. Those are just some of the highlights from this grid. What questions, or Anna, Tracy, if there's anything you want to add to anything we've shared? Okay, no? All right, cool.
Oh, question. Just with the, just looking at the, the coach attends the Impact Core Competency training within the first 2 years. I know that that's been, or at least my understanding has been like that's a kind of like a very much a requirement within working with Impact. To what extent does that look like? I mean, for me, I've been to the training and have done it. But as far as someone come alongside me or a couple of others who haven't gone yet, but plan on going.
That's a great question, Michael. I started off, and then if Anna and Tracy, you want to have anything you want to add. So the reason why we put the 2 years on there, if you're a full-time missionary, whether it's crew or impact, yeah, you got to go through the training right away. Matter of fact, we prefer you go through it before you even launch. But the reality is because sometimes we have volunteers who have full-time jobs, like whether they're on the campus or in, they may be on staff at the church, they may not have the ability to get in it right away. So that's where we allow that space so that they don't feel like, well, I can't volunteer because I can't get in it. However, what we do say is for those who are volunteering, again, I'm not talking about crew or impact staff, but for volunteers just from the community, what we say with them, we want to get them connected to an impact staff person so that that impact staff person can do training with them. Because there's some training we can provide, some volunteer training we can provide before they get to CCT, because we've all been through it. We've actually all helped with it. But there's some things that you'll experience in CCT that we can't provide you, that you need to go through. You need to experience it. But yeah, I would say, but anybody get connected with impact staff so we can provide that initial volunteer training. That's what I would say.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Oh yeah, I had a question on that same note.
Sure.
So what would that look, so myself as like a first year, like crew intern, like full-time intern, what would like going to ICCT look like this year or next year, depending on when? I don't know.
Yeah, great question. I'm gonna pass that ball on to Tracy because she works directly with the CCT, and so I'll let her talk about what could that look like.
Right now, we don't know, Christine, honestly. Because of what's going on with COVID, we had to cancel our July training, and it's likely that we're exploring the possibility of November. Our usual cadence is April, July, and November of any given year to host one. And because of what's going on with COVID, we can't make any promises that we'll even see one in 2020 right now. But we will definitely get the word out if that changes. Right now, we don't have any future dates in 2020.
Thanks.
Great. So perhaps Christine, in your situation, I don't remember off the top of my head who your regional director is, but what we can do, get connected with that regional director and they can provide the initial training that you may need. Cool. Any other questions? Okay, I think we were kind of trying to figure out how best to break you guys up. We'd like to give at least a few minutes. I think we probably have about 20, 25 minutes to at least begin some initial conversation about planning. So let's just look at planning the first 6 weeks because again, we don't know what's going to happen, how it's all going to happen. Keep in mind some of our virtual ministry conversations that we had earlier, and let's just kind of see what the first 6 weeks could look like. And we'll give our 2:28 now. Let's take about 25 minutes to at least get something started, and then we'll come back together. All right, welcome back. We have a few minutes before we're going to transition out. We'd just love to hear from you guys. So as you guys begin, what are some of the ideas you came up with, or what are some of the thoughts you had for how you might approach this first 6 weeks?
Just trying to let a student go first, but I'll go. So me, again, my name is Ajane. I am from New Jersey. I'll be coach at Rider University. So for me, the initial approach now was, again, being that I'm starting, I have no access directly to students right now. I knew a friend who works on the campus. He connected me to the Gospel Choir advisor. Gospel Choir advisor connected me to the Gospel Choir president and vice president. I shared the information with them through email. They were excited. They invited me to a Zoom call. I met with the president and the VP. And so right now I'm basically working through them to reach other students, which actually the president, Trevor Sullivan, he's on the conference. He's not here right now. He's working, but he'll probably be on before the end of it. So he even, registered and is on the conference himself. So they've been talking to choir students, choir members, as well as another ministry on campus that kind of attracts more Black students, as well as the BSU. So that's been my avenue to get the word out on the campus. My goal from here is before school starts, I would of course like to have a conversation with them again as like leaders, but even have a couple of Zoom calls with more students to kind of introduce impact movement, as well as just, have even some conversation, kind of like the real talks on the Monday night, have some conversation around, how are you feeling about what's going on in America? How's that affecting you? What does race look like on your campus? So giving those avenues to speak into as well. And so hopefully from that, we'll have a group that once school actually starts, we already kind of have a small group going that, they'll begin to invite others in. Before school starts, now they know what impact is. They know how we flow. They know that we're discussing things that speak to them as Black students and that shares their experience and allows them to have a voice. So they will likely be more open to sharing with other people and invite them in. So that would be my main thing. Right now, Ryder's plan is to come back on campus fully. So there's a benefit in that as well. So I think we can use both some in-person gathering space as well as maintain some online space to still get further numbers of people. So that will be my main thing. And I don't know, I'm sure they have like a fair day where we can kind of set up a table. That's always a very important day, especially for freshmen, because they're looking to see what organizations are on the campus. And so having some resources to give to them. I don't know if we still get the survival kits, but I remember those survival kits. So that, and I told Tracy a couple of days ago, my mother was digging stuff out of the patio and found I had some extra stuff from Impact like over 10 years ago. So I got an old Crossman CD, like 20 of them. So, I don't know if kids today want to listen to the cross movement, but, but I got some old booklets and passages. So I'm a little bit ahead of game here. So, but yeah, having those things to give to them, having those sessions already in place. Again, since I have access to, Gospel Choir president and vice president, they know how to reserve rooms. So that's that favor. That's that favor we're talking about, Steve.
Yeah.
So I already got some access into it. So, so that's where the direction I'm looking at going in right now.
That's some good stuff, man. And yes, cross movement still works. Just do it on Throwback Thursday. You already put that disclaimer out there, so everybody already know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And by the way, for all, there you go, House of Representatives. Who put? Okay, that's Michael. Yeah, you know. But you bring that up. One of the things, and it kind of we have to look how it's going this year because of budgets now. But historically, Crew has also typically provided funding for launching. And so there are funds that are available, sometimes up to about $2,000 per campus just to launch, to reach new campuses that are not being reached. So that's another opportunity that could be available. All right. Thanks, Ajane. Anyone else like to share some ideas that they had?
Hey, this is Jennifer. And since like Otterbein and Capital are both small campuses near like the Columbus area, we thought we were doing like a joint thing virtually to like get all of us together.
Yeah.
And also like to connect with our like student affairs person on campus to like reach more students of color. And to like also like check in with all the stuff that's been happening over the summer and connect with our students. And also have like some fun game nights, a corporate tour or some like dinner stuff also. Just keeping it like low key for the first few weeks.
That's cool. That's cool. That's some good stuff. Some good stuff. Good stuff. Anna, Tracy, any comments?
No, the group that I was a part of, they just did a really good job of asking just really good questions about like what it should look like. So a lot of less planning, but more so like looking and thinking through what it'll look like this year. What are some things that have worked for just campuses that I've been a part of, or and what things haven't worked. And so I think it was just a really good conversation about so that they can use to build off of and do their chapter planning.
Love it. Love it. Any other questions or any other ideas that campuses came up with? You did for your first 6 weeks.
I didn't mention this, but the thing that Anjane was describing is what we call freshman survival kits. And so they were given like a CD, a Bible, or like some kind of toy, a cup or a drinking bottle or something like that that came with that. But, you know, depending on how you access freshmen, you know, to have a freshman survival kit, you know, give them a mask. You know, something as simple as that. But just a little outreach. If they're moving into the dorms, to leave a mask on their door or something, you know, from the impact movement with some contact information, or just an idea for everybody.
Cool. Love it. Anyone else? Any other ideas that you came up with?
So this is a combination of a couple different things that people have said this weekend. I was talking with Chris, who's also at Arizona State, yesterday after, and so Arizona State has this thing every year called Welcome Black, and it's like a welcome week, but it's specifically just for Black students. So like all of the orgs like put on an event every single day, and then it culminates like on a Sunday at like one of the local like Black Baptist churches with like a Sunday service. And so we like had the idea of like during Welcome Black on Sunday, like after the service, like having a social distanced like Sunday dinner, because someone mentioned something about that, and I was like, that would be a really good idea of like having like after the service being like Impacts is having a like social distance Sunday dinner at the park that's like right near the church. And so yeah, thought that'd be a cool idea. And then just partnering with other organizations during Welcome Black. I don't know if your guys' campuses have that. If you don't, you could create a Welcome Black if you really wanted to. It's like what got me connected to Black student orgs on campus and other Black students on campus. So.
Love it. That's a great idea, Christine. There's so much with that one. That's a great idea. So if anybody has any questions they'd like to voice, we're going to have a Q&A here in a few minutes. So we'll go ahead and pause for here, and then we can come back for the Q&A.